Hey guys, Pedro here to tell you about the latest from Nite, Cult of the Serpent Sun, out March 14th on Season of Mist. The album has 8 tracks, 36 minutes in length, and this is the band's third full-length studio album. They are an American blackened heavy metal band. Now when you look at this record and you see 8 songs, 36 minutes, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, this album is just gonna fly. And obviously there is truth to that because of just based on the sheer numbers of 8 songs in 36 minutes. But there are tracks within this record that give you the experience that the album is actually longer than what it is. They almost extend the album. And those tracks not only give the album a more robust experience, because now the album doesn't feel short anymore, at least when you listen to it, the album actually feels quite long. It allows you to see perhaps a little bit more of a comprehensive experience out of the album. Those tracks also play an important role in terms of the versatility of the track listing and the versatility of the overall design, which is those tracks become the perfect exit reps. What I mean by that is that this is an album that doesn't necessarily require you to go from first to last. You can listen to a couple of songs. When those tracks come in, because they require more from the listener, they become a little bit more of a burden on the listener. You can exit off the album, go do something else, and then come back to the record again when you're ready to re-engage with it. So this versatility is really important on any album, but it's really important on a record that is short in length but feels long in its playability. As far as the sound is concerned, I feel like the sound on this album overall was darker than what I was expecting coming in. Obviously, I was expecting the album to be dark all around. That blackened experience that they have in their sound, in their music, vocal performance. It's always been there. Previous records, this record is no different. But this album pushes a little bit more of that darkness, specifically with some of the tracks, those ones that I mentioned, that extend the record or give you a sense of extension of the album. Those songs, a song like Cult of the Serpent Sun, has a little bit more of a doom background to it. So when you have a song that doesn't necessarily move quickly, that has slow movement to it, that has a sense of darkness in the sound and the atmosphere created by that sound, you start to see yourself almost sink in, like the song is Quicksand. You're sinking it into the track and it becomes harder and harder to come out of it. And this album, because of those songs and because of how they are, spread out throughout the entire record, the tracks that squeeze in between, that have more mobility, that feel a little bit more bright, more jovial, that have a little bit more light in them, are completely submerged by this darkness that is just really hard to shake off. This album has that sort of a vibe. It has that sort of atmosphere from beginning to end. So when you're listening to this record and you get to the end of it, you're like, wow, this is perhaps their darkest album to date. And I feel almost drained by this sound. But then when you take songs individually out of the context of the record and you listen to them, a song like The Last Blade, for example, or Carry On, you see that those tracks have a lot of energy. They have a lot of movement, a lot of melody, a lot of brightness. They're not as dark as the record overall makes you feel. So it's an interesting album sonically from this perspective, that it really comes down to how you approach the album and how far and how deep are you willing to go into it. One thing for sure, it doesn't matter if you go too far, too deep into it, or if you're just skimming the surface. This album is going to let you know how much of a guitar focus and guitar driven record it is, from the first song all the way to the last song. One of the pillars, if not the pillar, of the entire sonic experience of this record. The guitar sound on this album is phenomenal. The solos, the leads, the melodies, the riffage, a mixture of classic heavy metal with old school rock and roll. That is the best way I can describe how the guitars come across. Always with energy, even when they sound dark. They always have this sense of lifting the song. They always have this sense of creating an impact in the track, putting a very specific fingerprint on each and every single one of these songs. But the quality that they have is consistent from beginning to end. And this is an album that you could dislike a song here, you can dislike a song there, but you're not going to dislike the guitar playing the sound of the guitars and what the guitars give to this record. The focus on the guitars is extremely noticeable from start to finish. I just feel like the album at times lost a little bit of its heavy metal sound and went into different, darker, deeper directions. Now, the drums on the record sound phenomenal as well. I felt like actually they really helped put the guitars on that pedestal, allowing the guitars to be that pillar. I don't think that would have been possible. That dynamic movement of the guitars would not have been possible without the consistency of the drum sound. And the drum sound is really good. It has this nice width to it. It creates a nice footprint for each and every single track, and it stays very consistent with what it offers, with what it gives, and how it comes across. And the same could be said for the vocals. The vocals are another element of darkness on this record, as it is the DNA of the band. And I like the vocal performance on this album, more so not from the delivery itself, because that is consistent, but in terms of how they accommodated into the music that was created on each and every single track. Songs that have more of that quicksand, doomy feel to them. The vocals also feel like they're sinking into the track itself. Songs that have a little bit more movement, that have a little bit more melody, like The Last Blade, for example. Those tracks, the vocals have a different sort of performance. They adapt better to that sort of performance. Still dark, still with that blackened edge to it, but definitely allowing a little bit more energy to creep into the actual delivery. Now, Nite is a band that I really enjoy. I really like their sound. But this album, it became really more about the songs that I connected with versus the songs that I didn't connect with. I was hoping more for an overall consistent experience throughout. I really enjoyed their previous records from a record standpoint. I actually enjoyed the records more than listening to individual songs. And on this record, I had the complete opposite experience. I'm going to take a lot of these tracks, out of these 8 tracks, I'm going to take a lot of these tracks as my favorite songs. But those ones that have a slower movement, those ones that I feel that have more of a doom experience to them, I was just not a huge fan of them because I felt that they became quite cumbersome in the overall context of the record. Now, as far as favorite songs goes, I want to start off with Skull, a song that's kind of in the midpoint. It's not one of my favorites in terms of what it offers momentum-wise, and it's not one of the slower songs on the record. It's kind of in between. But it has great elements, specifically coming from the guitars and vocals. The guitars on this track sound phenomenal. Great guitar sound, great impact, a little bit more of a mixture at moments of classic heavy metal with just pure rock and roll. So you get those really consistent rock and roll riffs coming through. I love the vocals. I love the consistency of the vocals. The song has a sense of darkness to it. Not too dark, but it is a darker song for sure. It definitely has a dark ambiance, a dark vibe, a dark experience to it, but it's a great track. I really like the chorus. The chorus definitely moves from that heavy metal sound to that more rock and roll sound, and that adjustment works really well in the overall context of the track. Then we have my favorite song on the entire record, The Last Blade. I think this is the best song on the album. It's one of the most open sounding songs. It's definitely one that has the most amount of melody in it. It's a fun track. There is still some darkness to it, but the melody on this song is absolutely contagious. It's very hooky. It's a very hooky track. Great heavy metal sounding track with blackened elements. I think this is one of the most traditional Nite songs that this record has in terms of that blackened heavy metal sound and heavy metal experience. It has a super hooky, catchy chorus, which is not something I can say about a lot of other tracks on this record, and I think that's why this album perhaps loses a little bit of its overall appeal. But this track definitely has it. I love this song, both musically, both vocally. It's just a great track all around, and it really stands out throughout the entire experience of listening to this album. This is, for me, without a shadow of a doubt, the best song on the record. And then we have Carry On. Now, Carry On is an interesting track because it's not as vibrant as The Last Blade, still has incredible guitar sound and amazing consistent vocals. But this song almost feels more like a melodic death doom track, almost reminiscent of a band like Omnium Gatherum. And I say that for 2 reasons. 1, the melody. 2, it doesn't move super fast. It moves in a very melancholic way. but the melody allows that melancholy to not feel as draining as it could have been otherwise. If the song didn't have that more melodic guitar sound, this song would be super draining. But because it has that, it brightens up the track. So it's a great song all around. I really enjoyed this track, but let's face the facts. For me, best song on the album, The Last Blade. This is it. Let me know your thoughts on Nite, Cult of the Serpent Sun. Once again, out March 14th on Season of Mist. Hit me up in the comment section. I'll see you all at the next video. Take care, guys.